Genesis chapter 3. And this is kind of a continuation on things that we should know in order to go out and preach the gospel and teach the Bible. We should know a lot of these things and be prepared as Christians, as saved people. And so let's go to Genesis chapter 3, verse 13. Genesis chapter 3, verse 13. And the Lord said unto the woman, What is this that thou hast done? And the woman said, The serpent beguiled me, and I did eat. And the Lord said unto the serpent, Because thou hast done this, thou art cursed above all cattle, and above every beast of the field. Upon thy belly shalt thou go, and dust shalt thou eat all the days of thy life. And in verse 15, And I will put enmity between thee and the woman, and between thy seed and her seed. It shall bruise thy head, and thou shalt bruise his heel. And I want to talk about the seed today. And there's several different ways that you can look at it. There are people in this world that think the lost, the ones that never come to know Jesus Christ, they think that they're from like somebody else other than Eve. Or they're a mix of angels and humans and things like that. That they think those are the people that never get saved because there's some weird things out there that people believe. Now we believe that God has a chosen people. And I don't want to teach that today. I want to teach about us going out to witness. But when we go out to witness, we have to realize that all we're doing is carrying the word. And the word is Jesus Christ. And he is the seed that we're talking about. And he's the one that brings all these things about, has planned all this from the beginning of time. And then he is the word. So as we teach and preach, share the gospel, we're spreading seed. So in 1 Corinthians, go to 1 Corinthians chapter 1, just to touch on this. 1 Corinthians chapter 1. I just want you to be aware of this when we're going out and doing what the Lord tells us to do, to witness. 1 Corinthians chapter 1 and verse 21. For after 1 Corinthians chapter 1 verse 21, for after that in the wisdom of God, the world by wisdom knew not God. It pleased God by the foolishness of preaching to save them that believe. And what I want you to see here is the three words, it pleased God. So when somebody comes to Jesus, when somebody understands who the Word is, it's because it pleased God. And I want you to see that one more time in Galatians chapter 1. Galatians chapter 1. And this is all out of our hands. Galatians chapter 1, verse 15. But when it pleased God, who separated me from my mother's womb and called me by his grace. it pleased God. And so I want you to understand that Cain and Abel both came from Eve. And some of the others that I think about, Ishmael and Isaac, they came from Eve too. The whole world has come from this woman. So in some sense of the word, I'm going to talk about 4 women today. In some sense of the word. In the New Testament, the Pharisees and the disciples, they were all children of the man Abraham, right? From those generations. These were Jews in the New Testament there. So and Abraham came from Eve. They all came from the same person. So when we separate people, the lost and the saved are the ones where it pleased God. And so we share the scriptures with them, and we tell them who Jesus is, and we tell them that who we are now because of Jesus, and then we tell them the whole Bible teaches about Jesus, and then we share with them about how God used these women. And bear with me for just a little bit on the 4 women. Also, the tares and the good seed, they came from Eve. Go to Matthew chapter 13. Matthew chapter 13. I'm going to read verse 37 through 39. Matthew 13, 37 through 39. He answered and said unto them, He that soweth the good seed is the Son of Man. The field is the world. The good seed are the children of the kingdom, but the tares are the children of the wicked one. The enemy that sowed them is the devil. The harvest is the end of the world, and the reapers are the angels. So if you go back to that verse that we read in Genesis, or just think about it here for a second, you had Satan is at enmity, the Bible says, and his seed. It talked about his seed, and it talked about the seed that will bruise his head. And so go to, let's see. We're going to go to the book of John, chapter 8. Book of John, chapter 8. Verse 42, book of John chapter 8, verse 42. Jesus said unto them, he's talking to the Pharisees right now. These men that say they were from Abraham. Abraham's our father. If God were your father, ye would love me. For I proceeded forth and came from God, neither came I of myself, but he sent me. Why do you not understand my speech? Even because you cannot hear my word. Ye are of your father the devil, and the lust of your father ye will do. He was a murderer from the beginning, and abode not in the truth, because there is no truth in him. When he speaketh a lie, he speaketh of his own, for he is a liar, and the father of it. And because I tell you the truth, you believe me not. So you've got the devil's seed, and you got the seed of God. And we understand that that Jesus Christ is the epitome, I guess if that's the right word, of the seed. He is the capital S-O-N, Son of God. And we were all in the same boat as these other people until we were adopted, until it pleased God. And so when you witness to people, you may be like that woman that Cecil talked about, and hopefully you are. You see what you were and what Jesus did for you, and that comes out when you witness to people. That's good. And even in the Bible, it talks about persuading people. And you have to be careful in that, because when you do that, and each of us, as we talked about last Sunday, each of us witness in a different way because we have different personalities and different ways about us. And some of us are more timid, and some of us are more outspoken and loud and boisterous. Some of us are more obnoxious. But when we do that, when we witness to people, when we persuade, when we want to tell them how great God has been to me, we also know that their salvation hinges on not me, but on Jesus Christ. And when it pleased God, what pleases God? And so we leave that with God. We witness. We don't have to be. I was in churches in the past when I was young that taught like we need to be like a salesman. And sometimes I've seen a lot of sales since then. And people walk away and they don't know what they just bought. That's not what we want. So, but the seed, and I got a point here, so I'm going to try to keep going here. This seed started with Eve, and it was carried forward with the Jewish nation. So go to Revelations chapter 12. Revelations chapter 12. They had a job. And because of that, Revelations chapter 12, verse 13. Revelations 12, verse 13 through 17. Make sure I got this in order here. Okay. Revelations chapter 12, verse 13 through 17. And when the dragon saw that he was cast unto the earth, he persecuted the woman which brought forth the man-child. Now, something that I thought about here, and I don't understand this completely. I think I've heard it preached here, and I don't know one way or the other. Okay, how long this took, but Satan rose up against God, right? And some people think that there was a big span of time between that and when God created the heavens and the earth. And this verse here makes me think from the very beginning, from the moment that God created Satan, he was against God immediately. I don't think there was a time where he was a good angel and then turned bad. I think Satan was bad. And I don't understand how God works. I don't get that. But here so I don't think there was like a big span of time between the time Satan was good, and this is just my opinion, okay? So you don't have to take this anywhere if you don't want to. From the time Satan was good to when he turned bad, I don't think there was a big span of time, and then God created the heavens and the earth. I think it all kind of went really, really fast, and Satan was against God immediately. So in chapter 12, verse 13, and when the dragon saw that he was cast unto the earth, immediately he started to persecute the woman which brought forth the man-child. That's Eve. It's also, though, the Jewish nation. And to the woman were given 2 wings of a great eagle, that she might fly into the wilderness, into her place where she is nourished for a time and times and a half time from the face of the serpent. And the serpent cast out of his mouth waters as a flood after the woman, that he might cause her to be carried away of the flood. And the earth helped the woman, and the earth opened her mouth and swallowed up the flood which the dragon cast out of his mouth. And the dragon was wroth with the woman, and went to make war with the remnant of her seed, which keep the commandments of God and have the testimony of Jesus Christ. So we're in a battle with the seed of Satan. We're in a battle with them. And he used Eve and her descendants and the Jewish nation, and eventually he used the church. He's still using the church. That's the third woman that I'm not going to talk a lot about, because we'll do that here in our church services at times. But the church is the bride of Christ. It's pictured as another woman. So you had Eve, and you had the Jewish nation, and now you have the church, and they're all carrying the seed of Jesus Christ, the Word. The Word. That's our job. That's what we're doing when we go out to witness. And the other woman is not a good woman. And go to Revelation chapter 17. Revelation chapter 17. And I personally think this woman, if you want to, put it in a category, and you can't explain everything in a Sunday school lesson. Brother, most of these things that I've talked about, he'd take about a third of this and he'd have 30 messages on it, which is good because we need that. You can't get it all in one Sunday school lesson or four or five Sunday school. You can't teach everything. You just touch on a subject. And Brother Wayne will take a subject like the promises, and I don't remember how many messages that said, but there's many messages. There was many messages on the churches that were in Revelation. There was many messages. And so I can't explain all this, but this woman here, personally, some people think it's the Catholic Church. I think it's religion. You can lump it, almost 99.9% of religion believes in some sort of works for salvation and some sort of, they've either associated with or come out of or have similar doctrines as the Catholic Church, maybe. But I think it's religion per se as a whole. And I can't break all that down. I don't know all that history. But this woman in chapter 17, verse 1 through 6, and there came one of the 7 angels which had the 7 vials, and talked with me, saying unto me, Come hither, I will show unto thee the judgment of the great whore that sitteth upon many waters, with whom the kings of the earth have committed fornication, and the inhabitants of the earth have been made drunk with the wine of her fornication. So he carried me away in the spirit of the wilderness, and I saw a woman sit upon a scarlet-colored beast, full of names of blasphemy, having 7 heads and 10 horns. And the woman was arrayed in purple and scarlet color, and decked with gold and precious stones and pearls, having a golden cup in her hand, full of abominations and filthiness of her fornication. And upon her forehead was a name written, the mystery Babylon, the great, the mother of harlots and abominations of the earth. And I saw the woman drunken with the blood of the saints and with the blood of the martyrs of Jesus. And when I saw her, I wondered with great admiration. Our world has been dominated by all these different religions, all kinds of religions. And it's not just the ones that we have in this nation today. The Aztecs, the Aztec Indians, and those people had religions that brought them to the place where they were. And Egypt and the Middle East, they have religions that brought them to the place. And I think so. This fourth woman is from the seed of Satan. And so, not to get too far, not to really get into the subject, but that's why we're really careful with this holiday that's about this time, because we know what it's originated in. And I realize, I mean, this holiday, if you didn't want to participate in it, it feels like you're running and they got a hold of your shirt and you can't get away from it. I realize that because and some of it's fun. I get that. But see how Satan works? He really likes to entertain us. And so we have to be really careful. And so go to chapter 19 in Revelation, chapter 19. And then I'm going to read some scriptures after that, and we'll finish up here. Chapter 19, verse 1 and 2. And after these things I heard a great voice of much people in heaven saying, Alleluia! Salvation and glory and honor and power unto the Lord our God. For true and righteous are his judgments, for he hath judged the great whore, which did corrupt the earth with her fornication, and hath avenged the blood of his servants at her hand. So, my thing is, there's been a seed. It started with Eve, and then you have the seed of Satan, and you have the seed of Jesus Christ. And so go to Galatians 4. I'm just going to read some of these scriptures so we can go ahead and finish up here. I'm going to read Galatians chapter 4 first. And think about this. But when the fullness of time was come, God sent forth his Son. He said he was going to do that in Genesis. And he did it in Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, right? Made of a woman, made under the law, to redeem them that were under the law, that we might receive the adoption of sons. And because ye are sons, God hath sent forth the Spirit of his Son into your hearts, crying, Abba, Father. Wherefore thou art no more a servant, but a son, and of a son, then an heir of God through Christ. And we've been adopted. Romans, I'm going to read one verse. Romans 16:20. And the God of peace shall bruise Satan under your feet shortly. The grace of our Lord Jesus Christ be with you. Amen. And then the last verses that I'll read, it's in Hebrews chapter 2. Hebrews chapter 2. Verse 14. For as much then as the children are partakers of flesh and blood, he also himself likewise took part of the same, that through death he might destroy him that had the power of death, that is, the devil, and deliver them who through fear of death were all their lifetime subject to bondage. For verily he took not on him the nature of angels, but he took on him the seed of Abraham. Wherefore in all things it behooved him to be made like unto his brethren, that he might be merciful and faithful high priest, that he might be a merciful and faithful high priest in things pertaining to God, to make reconciliation for the sins of the people. For in that he himself hath suffered, being tempted, he is able to succor them that are tempted. And that's what you tell people. Maybe not in a 20-minute or 25-minute lesson, but you tell people who Jesus is, and you tell them that at the beginning you had an evil one that persuaded the first woman to sin. And then in that, she was promised that her seed would bruise Satan's head. And the whole Bible, throughout the whole Bible, is a progression of Jesus Christ to the point where he comes and he lives with us, among us, like us, and suffers everything that we have to go through in this life. He experienced it, and he did that for us, and he's the only one that did it without sin. The rest of us are all failures. And so the people that you witness to, they may think that you're a failure, and you can admit it. Yes, I am. And you can be like that woman that Cecil talked about in devotion, that knew who she was and worshiped Christ. And then you can share that with the people around you. And that's really what the series of the lessons is to know some of these things, to understand them, so that you can be a witness to the people around you. Every opportunity, and every opportunity is different than the other one. We all don't get to say the same things to everybody, and sometimes we have very little opportunity, but we can tell them that Jesus Christ saved me from my life, from my sin, from myself, and I am a son of God, and I'm of the seed of Abraham, like Jesus Christ was. He adopted me. You can tell people that, and I just want you to kind of be clear in that when you see people. I'll go ahead and Cecil, would you mind closing in prayer for us?